I'd like to remind everyone that the Nebraska Open Meetings Act legislates the methods by which public meetings are conducted. Information pertaining to this act is posted in the boardroom. Sheila, could you call roll?
Cindy O'Connor.
Present.
Skip Alton.
Present.
Angela Blaze.
Present.
Matthew Peterson.
Present.
Emily Garrett.
Present.
Joanne Green.
Present. And we'll review our purpose and direction. The purpose of the North Platte Public School District is to prepare all students to be productive, responsible citizens in a safe, kind, supportive learning environment. Our direction is to prepare every student for success through high-quality educational programs delivered by highly effective educators who use innovative research-based strategies in a safe, supportive environment in collaboration with family, businesses, and community members. I will entertain a motion for approval of the publication of this meeting.
Chance, Cindy.
We're all watching you.
Everybody was looking.
I would like to present a motion to approve the publication. Is that all I said? Second.
Roll call.
Skip Alton.
Aye.
Angela Blaze.
Aye.
Matthew Peterson.
Aye.
Emily Garrett.
Aye.
Joanne Green.
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye.
All right, now I will entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
I will. Thank that. I would like to approve, to make a motion to approve the agenda. Second.
Roll call.
Angela Blaze.
Aye.
Matthew Peterson.
Aye.
Emily Garrett.
Aye.
Joanne Green.
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye.
Skip Alton.
Aye.
And if you'll join me to the pledge of allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we will move on to the board engagement portion of our meeting. And so typically during this portion, we report on activities that we've been, school visits, and any positive things that we've seen in the district. I'm going to ask when Skip and Cindy give their report, if they would also share. Emily and I were in Dr. Rhodes and Stewart and other members of the district were involved in strategic planning the day that the governor came to North Platte. And so we were not able to get away for that, but Skip and Cindy were able to attend. And so I have asked that as part of their piece tonight that they would report on that. And then Emily and I will be able to share a few thoughts on the strategic planning session that we were involved with. So, and then everybody else is welcome to share as well. But those are some pieces that I wanted to make sure we included tonight. So we'll start with, whoever, do you want to start?
I'll go.
Okay.
I did attend the meeting with the governor, his town hall meeting. It was very interesting. There was, of course, the governor, Senator Jacobson. There were several other senators across the state there, which I was kind of surprised, but they were all in there together. I'm assuming to back the governor. He talked a lot about taxes, and he said it's not just taxes in North Platte, Nebraska, it's taxes across the state that are high. He said that we're losing people in Nebraska moving out of state because of our taxes. And he wants to do something to help keep the population in Nebraska. He did tell us that, which I thought was interesting, that since he's been governor, he has approved that no more property in the state of Nebraska can be sold to outside entities, countries, which I thought was a very good thing. He talked a lot about cutting. And he talked about mandates, that we need to cut mandates, and Skip, I wasn't quite sure on that, what he meant by mandates.
He meant, unfunded mandates like in schools that we have, which they passed several in this legislative session again. That's what he was talking.
Okay. Okay, he did talk about to try and get the taxes lowered so that the base salary for teachers can be raised in the state of Nebraska to help us get teachers in our state. He talked about a lot of other things, but I'm sure that Skip has a lot more.
Actually, for those of you who have read both either the Bulletin or the Telegraph, they were very good in the explanation of the things that he talked about. He said he was going to call a special session, which he has done for July 26th, Friday, which will start. He also said he will call more special sessions until he gets something done. If it takes till Christmas, he'll continue. Those were about the first words. He did talk about cut spending and getting rid of unfunded mandates, but then again, we pass a bunch every year.
Can you give us an example
Oh, the maps,
of? Okay,
good example, yeah.
thank you.
And we have to spend money on maps now because of that. And then there are training and other things that,
Lot of trainings that have come out of legislative sessions,
For
behavioral
teachers.
teachers training that were required.
Playing some of the curriculum stuff, I mean.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, oh, the Malcolm X
yeah.
thing, yeah. And he talked about, he wants to get rid of some of the 120 tax exemptions that have taken place since Nebraska instituted, changed the tax system in 1967. When it happened, I can remember when that happened. But the 120 of them and raising what he calls sin taxes, and sin taxes are just a simple word for cigarettes, alcohol, that type of fun, anything tobacco products. With the one interesting thing that he did say to me that got my attention very quickly was he's very interested in the state taking total control of all spending for public schools, which means it would come from the state, through the state, and they would control it all. And I do know that is one thing they're probably going to talk about, which for me destroys local control, period. But Cindy covered it. He went an hour and a half, just like he said he would. And I was surprised. The one thing that I did, I told Dr. Rhodes this, I was surprised there were only about 50 people at the meeting. When this is such a big thing. I do know it was at 11:30 in the morning. And we had other things going on, but I figured there'd be 100 or 150. There was only 50 people there. So, and he continues to do these around the state, and he will continue to do them until a special session. And he did say, and this is true, he doesn't know exactly what the bill is going to look like. That is what those senators are working. That's his group of senators that are working. So I guess we'll find out on July 26th. So. And then I just got, between our meeting we had with NASB and this meeting, I just got a text that said my legislative committee will be meeting on Zoom Saturday afternoon, the 27th, for 3 hours. So that's my anniversary too. So so at least it's in the afternoon. Okay. But there you go.
Okay, do you have anything else that you want?
Oh, I think that's enough.
Okay. All right, Angela, do you have anything to share?
No, just, it sounds like Kids Club's going good and we have a big.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is the big sale.
Okay.
Starts at
I can't be there.
Or 8:30.
So everybody else, please be final.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
Yeah, the only thing I was gonna say is my niece is doing kids club this year and just absolutely loves it. I mean, I know we talk about this all the time, but we're so lucky to have that program in our district. It's just a wonderful opportunity for those students, so.
Sure, I will jump in. So on a more positive note from Skip's report, I did get to visit Kids Club this summer. So Dr. Rhodes and I went and visited one morning. I can't remember if it was in the morning. And kind of toured what they were doing at Kids Club, and I was just amazed at the level of organization to make all of that happen. Like, just even the process of those teachers like packing up their classrooms and someone else moving into their classrooms, and how seamlessly that all kind of seemed to flow from their check-in system to how they manage the wet towels from the pool and just all of the things. And so that was pretty fun. I got to see I was really impressed with just some of the technology that they had. And I know it was grant funded. They had talked about they have kind of acquired some different things, but that just kind of helped to encourage problem solving and creativity. And I was literally jotting down notes of like, yeah, my child would love this for his birthday. And so that was a really cool visit. And then I was also able to take part in both days of strategic planning with the district. And that was really, it was a long couple of days. But it was, I was really pleased at the end of it. It felt like everybody in the room, even though we all had maybe different ways of how we thought would be best to get there, the common goal was really, we wanted to see excellence in our students. And we all kind of agreed on, some things that we thought would really help us achieve that goal. And had a lot of conversations about, making smart decisions that are data driven, and, how do we keep our different groups accountable, and how do we achieve high? And it was just really exciting to see that. And so I am excited for everybody else to get to take part in the next steps of that. And I do hope the next steps we get maybe some more external stakeholders that are available. I know it's hard with Nebraska Land Days to get people to want to probably do that. But I am looking forward to bringing maybe some more of our community members on board, because I think they'll be really excited about that process as well.
So I was able to take part in the strategic planning as well. I think, did we have 28 people there
Yes.
for those 2 days? And it was a variety of people from across the district. We had teachers and paras and a couple board members, principals. We had cabinet members. So there's just a lot of people that were involved in that. I thought it was really interesting when we would come back as a whole group. I really appreciated the fact that there were so many different people who came from different levels of the district, who all had similar themes to the things that they wanted to address. And it was also interesting. I think one of the things that I noticed as we went through this process is that there are a lot of goals that we have just as a board that aren't necessarily district goals, but just goals for our board, but that they also aligned with the things that we discovered for the district. And I think everybody knows that I'm really excited to be able to share those things. And so I can't wait until we get to hear a more formal report. Really pumped about our mission statement and the direction that we're hoping to go. And yeah, so I think it was a really good process. It was really nice to see there wasn't a lot of it was just a very calm and easy, peaceful process, even though the days were long. But it was good. I went home feeling pretty good every night. So I also wanted to report that I was able to, Terry Burchell had a Nebraska Association of Public School Board Foundation board meeting. And since Dr. Rhodes was out of the district, she had asked if I could come. She also had Dr. Jody Tomanek from the college and the mayor just come and welcome this group. So it was some other foundation board directors from across the state. We had, I think, 4 other people there, and then there were a couple others that joined them on Zoom, and so it was really good to get to meet those ladies and to welcome them to the district and to visit with them about some of the things that they're doing and they see with the foundations. And then also, the Sixpence ladies had a booth at the Kids Fun Fest, and that was what they used for their activity for this month. And so I went and hung out with them for about an hour. And it was really fun to see them interacting with the kids at the Kids Fun Fest, and several of their families came while they were there. And so it was just really neat for me to be able to see in person the relationship that they have with these families, and you can just see why they are so good at what they do. And I saw on social media that they're trained to help install car seats, and I mean, they have a lot of really useful skills that I think are helping some of our young parents. So it was really nice to get to spend that time with them. So, all right. We will move on to our teammates report.
Okay. Thanks for having us. For those of you that don't know me, I am Molly Morales. I am the coordinator for the local teammates chapter here in North Platte, and Maggie Butler is with me tonight. She is a mentor for North Platte teammates, but she's also on our board. And so we'll just start off by talking with, I'm gonna mute myself. There we go. So I'll first start off by saying that Teammates was started by a legendary football coach, Tom Osborne, over 30 years ago. Him and his wife Nancy took our football players into local schools in Lincoln. And that's kind of how Teammates started. Since the inception of Teammates, they have served more than 45,000 youth over the last 30 years. Right now, Teammates is in 192 communities across Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, Wyoming, and South Dakota. So here in North Platte was one of the first chapters that was started. So we have been in existence for over 30 years. So that's positive for here in North Platte. The mission of Teammates is to positively impact the world by inspiring students to reach their full potential through mentoring. So Maggie's going to hand out our dashboard from the last several years. Over the past 5 years, Teammates mentees have shown an increase in academic improvement, fewer disciplinary referrals, and fewer unexcused absences. So we report to our national office in Lincoln all of these things every fall and every spring for those students that are involved with Teammates. So it kind of gives us some numbers. So in the 22-23 school year, 69% of our mentees showed academic improvement, 71% showed fewer disciplinary referrals, and 91% showed fewer unexcused absences. Also in the 22-23 school year, we retained 77% of our matches, and this was an increase of 52% from the year before. COVID did kind of hit us a little bit. We were close to 120 matches prior to COVID, and we dipped way down. So we were glad that our retention of our matches is starting to go back up again. Each year, we also, as a local board, award scholarships to our seniors. They have to turn in essays to us, telling us how Teammates has impacted their lives. And this year we gave $3,850 to a graduating senior to help her go to college. Also, our Teammate Central, our national office in Lincoln was awarded the Read Nebraska grant this year. Here in our Platte, we were one of the first chapters in the Western region to, jump on board. And I think it's really important, to, improve kids academically. And, the Read Nebraska, program aims to expand mentorships throughout the state of Nebraska and improve the reading levels of elementary aged students. So we currently have 2, matches, through the Read grant. Hopefully, we're gonna get 3 more through that. We want to have at least 5. So also because we were one of the first chapters to jump on board with the Read grant, Scholastic gifted us a, book vending machine, which we have housed at Jefferson Elementary, that will be available to all students. We're kind of in the works of how we want that to work, but I'm working with Lindsay and, the literacy facilitators to, see how we're gonna have that work, but it's already there. Additionally, Link to Literacy is also, there's these totes here, and as you can see, they're filled with books and games. So we got one of those for each elementary school, and then totes, that contain reading materials for each elementary kid that's, involved in teammates. So that's a good thing to go to Read Nebraska grant.
So as Molly mentioned, during COVID, as with everything in the community, teammates kind of took a hit. One thing that the board looked at this year was how can we improve mentor involvement and get more mentors on board to help us match our mentees that we currently have. And so this year, we did put some money toward a video that was created. And you can maybe speak to the group that came in. It was the same group that did the I Love Public Schools video a couple of years ago. And so we'll go ahead and show that video now.
Hey everyone, on the line. Step forward if you need an adult you can trust. Step forward if you like someone to listen without judgment. Step forward if you need someone who believes in you even when you don't. Step forward if you have all these things in a teammate's mentor.
I'm Anaise. I'm a senior at the North Platte High School, and I've had a teammates mentor since I was in 6th grade.
What were you looking for when you got a mentor? Anything in particular?
I was looking for trust was the biggest one, and I wanted my mentor, I wanted her to be like my friend and someone that I could lean on and someone that I could talk to during anything. And I felt like I really did get one with Melissa because I can trust her. She helped me see another side of me, which I'm thankful for because I used to be a little hot-headed little girl. But I'm glad that she helped me on the road to college, helped me save for a car. She's done a lot of things for me, and she made me realize that there's more sides of me than the path that I was going down, which I'm thankful for her for that.
What have you learned about yourself from being in teammates?
That I have a voice, and maybe if I talk to someone, I can influence them to maybe do what's right. And I just feel like teammates has really shown me that I'm a strong, independent female, and if I put my mind to it, I can do it.
What do you hope for in the future with your mentor?
I want us to have like a really, really strong friendship, and I want us to continue that because we have a beautiful relationship. I consider her my best friend. I can lean on her for anything. I've cried to her, and she just understands me and she helps me. Sometimes it's stuff I don't want to hear, but in the long run, it's what I need to hear because it helped me, and I'm thankful for that as well.
My name is Pat. I've been a teammates mentor for, 7th, 8th, 9th, 5 years.
I'm Henry, and I've had a teammates mentor for 5 years.
What do you play, a cello?
No, I play the viola, so that's the one that people don't often recognize, but you'd certainly miss it if it wasn't in the orchestra. So
Well, that's what I enjoy when I come to our sessions. You know, you're into the acting and the finer arts, and I'm more of a farm boy accountant type.
There you go.
And you've really enriched my life a lot by just seeing everything that you're into.
And you to the same
And
effect, Pat.
It's interesting to see everything, you know.
Every week, Mom asked me how my meeting with you went, and it's good to do. You know, look forward to it every week. It's nice because there's so many people in the school, and so to come in the library and just sit down with one person and talk about very relevant and real things, it's very nice. So thank you, Pat.
And this is more of a one-on-one sense of meeting somebody and feeling that gratification. And I remember when we first met, our first meeting, I thought, my gosh, I don't know if this is going to work out, you know, because we were both just kind of, and after the second meeting, I felt a little better, and the third meeting, and I think as we met time after time,
it got much better.
It's interesting how you can meet somebody that you've never known before, have really no connections with, and you can develop, I'd almost say, a friendship. We have a lot of mutual trust, and we can talk, I feel, about anything and a lot of different things.
Exactly.
And for me, to have somebody in your life that you bring into your life, somebody else that's like that, it's a good thing.
Oh yeah.
That's what I love.
I'm Kim, and I'm a teammates mentor, have been for 26 years, and I've mentored 11 young men.
I think the beauty of teammates, and not a lot of people see this, but as a mentor, you get just as much out of the relationship as the mentees do.
I've been through some pretty deep valleys with some of these kids, and times when I almost thought there was no hope for the relationship and maybe no hope for them, you know. We say things to them that we don't think resonate. We don't know if they're listening or that they're comprehending what we're trying to say to them. And then it comes up years later. You know, I remember when you told me this. Yeah, I had a mentee who was really struggling and had pretty much given up on himself and making a lot of bad choices. Our match was terminated his senior year because he wouldn't show up for the meetings because he didn't want to hear the honest assessment I had to his bad choices. He didn't want to believe that he was capable of something better, and I kept telling him he was. And then a number of years later, after battling severe drug addiction problems, he finally was on his road to recovery, and he wrote me a letter telling me that he never forgot what I said to him. And now he speaks to other groups of addicts about his own life experience, so he's helping lots of people. I feel really good about that. I'm super proud of him.
Let's talk about a little bit about your relationship with the young men that you're mentoring now.
Well, I have 3 mentees currently, and the oldest one's an 8th grader, and he's a model kid. This guy he's good at everything he does, good athlete, he's a good student, he's well-liked by his peers, he's a natural leader, he's got great parents, great grandparents, he's got everything going for him.
I always say that every child is one bad decision away from being at risk. Whether you have divorced parents or if your parents are together, if you have a great family, if your family struggles, everybody deserves another caring adult in their life.
It's true that every kid would benefit from a mentor. I wish we had enough mentors to where every kid who wanted a mentor could have one. That would be the perfect ultimate goal for teammates or any other mentoring program.
Just takes 10 minutes to have a conversation and just to see where it goes, because it could change your life and it could change that kid's life just like it changed mine.
Now step forward if you are or have been a teammate's mentor. Step forward if this relationship has changed your life. Now step forward if you want a teammate's mentor.
want a teammate's mentor.
Shine on, prairie moon.
Okay, if that goes viral, we want to cut.
So as Maggie said, we have that video made, so when we go talk to businesses or we go talk to various groups, we can recruit people and try to get them to come mentor because we really do need mentors. But the next few slides are just a little bit about teammates, a little bit more about teammates, like what a mentor is, a safe adult friend, a bucket filler, a cheerleader. But most importantly, I think, is the mentor shows up. If you say you're gonna do it, do it. And what do you do as a mentor? You meet once a week at school or school activities, everything school. We are completely school-based for safety purposes. You can play board games, you can shoot hoops, you can just talk, work on crafts. The possibilities are endless. And how much time does it take? A lot of people say, I don't have time to do that. If you have time to get in your car and go through a drive-through at lunch, you have time to be a mentor. I mean, we all know our lunches are quick at the schools. So it's literally 30 minutes once a week. It's very flexible. If you can come on Tuesday one week and you can't get there till Friday of the next week, that's okay too, but communication is key, just so those kids know why you didn't show up. And how are you matched? So there's a training process for the mentors and there's a training process for the mentees. I try to match you based on similar likes and interests. Hopefully you guys have something in common, you know, when you're matched. And there's a lot of people in here that have a one-time mentor or are mentoring right now, and I think they can attest to this. 82% of teammates mentors report feeling more engaged at home or when we're at work after mentoring, and 88% of teammates mentors report feeling more hopeful as a result of their mentee. And I can attest to that because I feel great after meeting with my mentee once a week. So what do we need? More mentors. We do have 28 kids on the wait list right now. So if you've ever contemplated becoming a mentor, if you have questions, come see me. I'm here urgently. You can also go to teammates.org through the QR code there, and they should answer your questions too. So thank you for having this session.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or? All right, thank you. All right, so we will move on to our special education report with Mrs. Johnson.
Not students getting up to try to help with the technology.
He's just hungry.
You're gonna do that. Yeah, you're gonna do my second job. That's more like.
All right, so I have some information to share with you about special education department. Last year we employed 51 certificated staffers. If you total us all up, we're over 100. But certificated there is 51 of us. There's actually 2 of them are sitting back here. So we have resource teachers here today in the audience. I know I've talked to you about this before, but I'm just going to keep putting it in front of people because lots of times we forget. We serve students birth to 21. So we child find everywhere. I think I mentioned it to one of you when I was talking to you that I've actually child found like 2 kids at a garage sale. I was like, oh, hey, I wonder if they've heard about our program. So it's really birthed 21, which is great because not all states are birth mandate states. I did link this for you. These are our categories for eligibility in special education if you want to read more about them. So all of those are live links and they will take you right to the Department of Education. So you can read more about each one because sometimes we know more about one than maybe some of the other ones. And then I just kind of want to dive into our data here at North Platte Public Schools and all of the services we provide. So what I did is, I think I shared this with you last year as well, but I think it's important for us to know the type of service we offer and then who helps provide that service. So for instance, special education teachers, like 2 of the special education teachers that are here with us tonight, we employ all of those through North Platte Public Schools. Occupational therapy, we're very, very blessed. We actually have 2 occupational therapists and an occupational therapist quota, which is kind of like an assistant OT. And they're employed through North Platte Public Schools as well. Speech therapy, we employ our own, but we also access the Educational Service Unit 16 for that support as well. Physical therapy, we have 1 physical therapist. She's amazing for our whole district. That's actually pretty uncommon. There's actually districts larger than us that have to contract PT, and we have our own, which is pretty exciting, and she's also amazing. School psychologist, we actually have virtual in there as well. So I put all 3 of those down, North Platte Public Schools. We do teletherapy and then also contract with the issue 16. Does anyone have any questions specifically about those services we offer?
Can you talk, we talked to the externals about our speech language pathologists that's gonna be telehealth.
Yeah, virtual.
Talk about that a little bit and just kind of explain how it's gonna work.
Yeah.
She will be employed by the district.
She is, yes, she is employed by North Platte Public Schools, but she is virtual. And she'll be working at 2 of our schools. And she will also have, so she'll have a team though. So yes, she'll be on via Zoom. So Jeff Allen and Kirsten Bowman are our 2 special education facilitators, and myself will be heavily involved in that process so we can get it up and going. But she'll Zoom in and serve kids like we would sitting across the table from an SLP. She'll also Zoom into classes, just like some of our SLPs go into general education classes. She'll go into general education classes too.
You see that becoming more of a norm of some of these specialists that we're gonna have to do this type of work with?
That's a really good question. I don't know. We're trying it out. I will tell you, there's districts across the state that have already been doing that for years. So we have actually done it in the past year. I think it was before I came. This will be my 3rd year. Yeah.
And these are all services that we offer to St. Pat's and to our Redeemer and to homeschool families as well.
Question. All students who qualify and who are eligible for special education, yep, it doesn't matter what school they go to or if they're homeschooled, and they qualify and we go through that process of eligibility, then yes. It's a great question.
So this is maybe a Stuart question, but so those students that aren't in our district, but we're still providing services to, is that 80% of whatever we get from the state, is that included?
Yeah, so Eric and I went through this. We have to meet with the non-public entities and address the proportionate share that has to go to them for the amount of students that we have to serve at St. Pat's and our Redeemer. And so we've identified, Eric has identified the students. We know the dollar amount, but we also know the services that she has to provide depending on if it's speech therapy or OT or just resource. But we continually have to provide services over there based upon a matrix that we have to go through on serving the students in special ed.
All right, so deaf and hard of hearing, we actually, there's deaf and hard of hearing educator of the deaf and hard of hearing, excuse me. At ESU 16, so we contract with them. We also contract with them for audiology. And then the next two, we have vision services and orientation and mobility services at North Platte Public Schools. We actually have 2 teachers who are endorsed in both of those areas. So we actually contract out for ESU 16 schools. So we help support students in our area that need those services.
I just had another question that I thought of. So
Sure.
since your birth to 21, are there instances where maybe you go into a daycare to provide services as well?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. We actually go into homes. So birth to 3 is really their natural environment. So a lot of our educators and our services coordinators, they go into homes, they go into daycares. I actually was just at the park today for a meeting. So we, the mom and her child were at the park, and that's where she wanted to meet. So we sat down at a picnic table and we had a meeting. So yeah. We also have our transition house, which Jordan Fry is here tonight. And she is our teacher at the transition house. She's also teaching extended school year, which students through the IEP process have to qualify for. And so she's helping out with that right now with some of our students. And so I would love to take you, I know I've taken Joanna on a tour to meet the kids at the transition house. But I would love to take you over there. You can spend some time with Jordan and the kids at the transition house. And then we also have our own autism team, which is also amazing. We work really closely with the Nebraska Autism Spectrum Disorders Network, but we actually have our own autism team here. So that team of individuals goes out and helps teachers problem solve and program for students with autism. So any questions about any of those services? All right, like I said, we have the early childhood, early development network. We actually have 2.5 service coordinators, and that is in combination with the Department of Ed and DHHS. And part of that is the planning region team. The planning region team, actually, you could absolutely come to one of those meetings as well. They're 4 times a year. That really is focused on birth to 8-year-olds. And it's really community driven. So we talk about just like the resources we have available within the community and how that affects our birth to 8-year-olds. Another amazing service we have is adaptive PE. So that's another service we can offer if they're eligible through the IEP process. And then we have 2 special education facilitators. And then our school improvement. So I know we talk a lot about school improvement. We actually have school improvement for children with disabilities. And that's what that ILCD is up there. So it really is focused on improving outcomes for children with disabilities. Any questions on those services? This is just some of our professional development that we've offered over the last year. I think right now, the inclusive learning environment is kind of the last one there on the left-hand side, is really something that not only North Platte is really trying to increase, but the state of Nebraska. So that's going to be a common, I think you have noticed in our, when Dr. Rhodes sends out the weekly update, that's usually what I write about is in inclusive learning environments. Lots of pictures. Yeah. Any questions on any of the professional development?
So, these are mostly things that just your team participates in. Are there any of these that are offered to other teachers?
Yes, it's a combination. Yeah, that's a great question. So, so like the inclusive learning environments, a lot of our teach on strategies, those are all inclusive learning tools. So we're worked hand in hand, which I think is amazing, because what's good for one student is good for another. And they might not be in special education, but it can still benefit them. And then I know you've seen this before and you'll continue to see it. These are kind of the 4 things that we focus on when we talk about students in special education and their plan. It's really driven by strengths and needs. And then we talk about where they are and their present levels. And then from there to talk about the goals that we want to work on for the next year. And then we talk about how much service time they need and who needs to help them and the accommodations they need to accomplish those goals. Any other questions?
What percentage of our, first of all, what percentage of our students qualify as special education?
In the district, 21%.
So then, of that 21%, I don't know if this is the right term, but I don't want to say graduate out of special education, but like, how does that work? How do we track like students that start with an IEP?
Yes.
Then
I do not know the percentage. I can find out for you to see what the percentage was last year. But that, yeah, they test out, I guess, the same way that we evaluate them to become eligible. So we collect a lot of data and we do evaluation. And then as a team, they sit down and discuss that data to see if they qualify or if they're ready to venture out on their own.
and you kids ever test out and then a couple years down the road, we say we need to kind of bring them back in.
Yes, we've had that too. Yep.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you. Appreciate it. We'll move on to the staffing update and Mr. Mintz.
Yes, I believe I reported to the board, we had a late resignation in school counseling and we were concerned about that. Obviously, we're going to keep that individual in the contract unless we could find a replacement, a suitable replacement. And we did find a suitable replacement and we're able to allow that individual to be released from their contract and move on to their next venture. And we got a male school counselor, elementary school counselor. So we're very excited about that. So again, you never know how these things are going to work out. Late resignation, I don't have hair, right? Right? Pull it all out. So, and then the other thing I wanted to get you guys let me know, we're in the process now of looking at hiring paras for the future, and we're also in the middle of a para agreement negotiation. We're doing that, and I just want to report that this year coming up, Eric and I sat down and analyzed the district and paras and numbers, and we're looking to hire about 14 or 15 paras, and that's half of what we did last year. So we hired 31 last year, so we've cut that in half this year, which speaks highly to our retaining. And also, I think part of that is, through all the work that TNL and SPED, I'll give kudos to them with all the training that we're doing. So we're starting to see that retain, and we hope to continue that process, and hopefully that hiring number will continue to go down. But I just want to let the board know that we've made some progress then.
Okay. Yeah, but what are as we're looking at paras and people say at home, they're looking for work. What are we looking at as far as requirements? And is it all full-time or there's some part-time?
Full-time, number one. We would love to have, obviously, someone that's interested in education or has been in education or worked with children. But a lot of our paras don't have any experience with kids, and then therefore there's where the training comes in. So we look for that, loving kids, that's number one. Timely, showing up for work. We look for all the different qualities that we've able to see in their other jobs, and how can we take those soft skills and include them into paraprofessionals. So we kind of do work that through the interview to see what comes from that. I would say 1 in 40 have experience. It's really rare that we find one. We did able to grab one up this year and hire her quickly because she was a former parent in another surrounding school district. Is that,
I also think that, can I jump in?
yeah,
Just coachable.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so even if they don't have experience, we have amazing educators and they'll be able to teach them and coach them and, yeah, mentor for them.
So,
Kevin, how many pairs do we have in the district?
I'd say 120, that's all right, Stuart?
I think so.
Yeah. And I think another part of that, obviously, we've been named the para teacher program. I think that's helped that process as well, because some of those will actually be moving out of para and becoming teachers in the next semester on down the line. We have a nice matrix to show when they will graduate and hopefully they'll fill some of those spots that we've struggled with. So big part of everything we do is having paraprofessionals. Very valuable.
All right, any other questions for? All right, we'll move on to the finance report with Mr. Simpson.
There is no finance report. I mostly will do that at the board meeting.
Okay.
We do have our budget workshop on July 16th. So that'll be more of the information that'll be rolled out at this point in time. Hopefully I've built enough of the information as we put together the budget that everybody has a good foundation. So as we go through this budget process, we can look at the budget and discuss it.
Okay. So do you want to move on into the expenditure reimbursement guidelines?
Yep. Hang on here, let me. I will now.
We're not gonna allocate the time that you were gonna use for that.
I'm working on it here, I'm trying to get it. I can't win with. All right. I've attached the district expenditure reimbursement guidelines. Now, what I first want to say is that part of the internal control in the business office is we put together various documents that really address certain items that we have in the district that we need to have control on internally. Because number one, the auditors are going to come in and review that and say, okay, what is your process that you do and what are the guidelines that you follow? And I can look at various. Hopefully I can look quickly, but I don't think I can. We have various policies or procedures, I want to say, that we follow within the business office that sort of tells us how do we do certain things such as pay for a bond payment, or how do we pay for travel reimbursements, or how do we pay for certain other items. So I wanted to bring this up to the board because there was some questions in regards to what we do within the business office and travel reimbursements. So this is really part of our internal control. The auditors will ask it this year, but we put together this document and I'm going to go back in time, but I have to count back the people that I've had. So I've had Janelle, then I want to say Mary May, was she before her? And then I had Melissa. Then I had Tanya, then I had Melissa. Melissa developed this for me.
Thank you.
I'm looking at her, it's constant.
Yeah, Cindy was my constant, and I went through them like water. But Melissa made this up, so we're talking about 10, 12 years ago. And so when I first came here in the district, I put together a lot of the guidelines that I needed. But when Melissa was here, she sort of helped write up this district expenditure reimbursement guideline. So that gives us a little bit more documentation. The auditors were requesting a little bit more guidance on what we were doing. So in that, I put this together so that we can have a standard operating procedure within the business office. And you can go through this. I'm not going to take up time, Matt, but you can really go through and address, as staff members travel or within the district, they have guidelines that we follow accordingly. Now, I do want to say one thing is that if staff members request to travel, they have to submit a form to Kevin, which then comes to the cabinet level, and then we evaluate that. If it's tying in with our curriculum that we're doing, or in their guidelines of their area of development, such as counseling or PE or something, since it's outside the realm of our core curriculum, is it still guiding us also? So we want to make sure as they turn that into us here at central office, we can say yay or nay and then send them on their way. Now, this doesn't include activities, because activities is a beast in and of itself. And so when students travel around the state, we've sort of put in a guideline of how many miles they'll receive reimbursement for food, but it could be, the mileage could be shorter, because when we look at a speech, they may be going to Broken Bow, but it's Broken Bow at 5:30 in the morning till 6:30 at night. And so we've sort of said normally students going within a 100-mile radius will receive at least a meal reimbursement through activities. This doesn't fall within this guidelines. But then also we looked at the dynamics of a group or an organization going somewhere, and wrestling, speech, they're going to leave, but they may be at a area where they're going to be in an event. I can even look at Angela when they went to Bridgeport. Bridgeport is maybe 100 miles or less, but they were there from 6:30 in the morning till 6:30 at night. And so we need to provide those students some nourishment or some meals and reimbursement. So what I'm really trying to say is that we have guidelines for our staff, but we then also have guidelines for our students too.
Stuart, are these the same guidelines that are used? Because I think probably part of this spurred from some of the questions I had asked during claims audit a few months ago. Are these same guidelines used when because these are talking about reimbursements, but what about like P-card expenditures and some of those kinds of things? And I know I had asked about like local food expenses.
And we do, within here, we do address that people can use a P-card item, but in that they must have upon prior approval by the superintendent or authorized designee in North Platte, so that as they go out doing something, whatever that may be, they've been in that communication so that they can then use a P card. Because maybe some of you don't know this, but I really push using P card, and number one, we can get an itemized receipt, which that is the first and foremost thing that we need. Second of all, though, we get, right now it's running about 1.75% cash back. So it's a lot of times, instead of reimbursing like Vicky or Erica, we use the P cards because we're going to get 1.6% cash back, which then goes in support of multiple activities in the district, and that interest goes toward, right now we've used it at our library. So what I'm saying is, we use a P card, but the superintendent or designee has to approve those transactions before they go out and do what they're doing locally. We do have guidelines on how much they have to expend. And I'm going to say this, when the previous AD was here, I was doing sort of a study with them, but it also transitioned into employee reimbursements. There is no way anymore after COVID that before we were giving students $5 for a meal, there was no way we could do it. We had to increase that just to 15 to cover a standard meal if you went to, and I'm not saying locally, but I'm just saying when you were out of town, if you went to Raising Cane's or McDonald's, or even just a normal restaurant like Ruby Tuesdays or wherever, you couldn't get a meal for less than $15. So those costs have increased accordingly, but then in the process, we still want the itemized receipt. We still want the documentation that was who was in attendance, so that we can make sure that we have all the information needed, not only for the claims audit for the board, but for our auditors too, because they will come in and review all the claims that we do, not only on P cards, but on checks. explain it? I may have gone a little bit too far. but-
Yeah, I think, so I mean, in short, P cards are following the same guidelines. It's just a different way of approving the purchase rather than a technical reimbursement. I think like the original reason that I kind of started asking these questions and was curious what we had in place. You know, I think we've discussed some of the travel expenses and those kinds of things. But I think my concern came from some of the local expenses that we see coming up. And so I was just kind of interested in seeing, you know, I know that there are some guidelines here, but I was curious if we have rationale in place for what justifies a working lunch. Are we trying to schedule meetings to where they don't go over meal times to save the district funds? I was curious about some of the.
You know, and some of the meals that we're seeing on the P cards is, number one, we may have a person coming in from, we'll just say Department of Ed, but it could be from another local school district that may want to see what we're doing in SPED, or may want to see what we're doing in 6-Pitch, or evaluating one of their programs. Well, in the process, they're coming in at 9 or 10 in the morning and they're leaving at 2. So part of the process has been that to be considerate of their time and to help them, obviously we take them out to lunch. The other ones is that we evaluate, we may be meeting with people that we want to do certain projects with. We were talking about Kids Club tonight, and Carrie meets with various, the word is just not coming to me, but I want to say people around the community about, they want to do this in there, because we have multiple grants within Kids Club that she has to spend the dollars to help support the students on the after school program. Well, part of that is to meet them over lunch or at a coffee place or something that really says, you know, hey, we want to listen to what you have to say, and what is the process that we're going to take your business through to help you educate our students in the process. So I think it becomes more of just a courtesy about saying, okay, let's meet over something that makes you feel comfortable to talk to us as well as what's going on there. So that's some of the dynamics that have happened. Also, the other items that we probably saw within the claims audit, when we host events, and this goes outside the realm of this guidelines, is when we host events such as the Blue Go track meet or the speech meet or some other event, whether it's at Northland High School or at Adams, part of our responsibility as being host site is to have if I want to say a coach's
Hospitality.
Thank you, hospitality group. And in that's why sometimes we were seeing some costs associated coming in because they were providing a hospitality room. We've tried to work with Sodexo in the past, but some of them have been over a time when Sodexo was not on duty, and Sodexo is only on duty when students are in session. And so when they request something outside that realm, Stephanie tries to work with them, but sometimes that's just getting to where we have to bring staff in on overtime if the cost becomes probably equal to just working with a local vendor in the process.
Well, and I know a lot of the activities try to help parents support those activities in addition to, you know, what the school or the activity may have to spend. So, but I also know with a couple of the events that my own children participated in, that the volunteerism and those contributions from parents aren't necessarily always what they have been in the past. And so sometimes that makes it so that, you know, the district maybe ends up picking a little bit more of the tab than maybe we'd like to.
You know, you prompted me to remember one other item that does happen with a lot of our, we'll just say, activities. At the end of the season, they always have sort of a gathering to, number one, honor the coaches and honor the players and the seniors that are exiting the program. And I would go along with you, Joanne, with what you were saying, because parents in the past really were all hell. Now parents are either saying, here's some money, go buy it. I don't want to help, or all I want to do is give you money. So a lot of times that money will go into some activity fundraiser, and then all of a sudden, we just have to buy those items. And I can look at Angela when they were doing wrestling at the end of the year. My daughter was in volleyball, you had band, it just all of a sudden, like Joanne said, parents either don't have the time or don't have the energy, so they'll give money, and then we turn around and then try to provide that.
I think one of the things that I'll mention here is I have had a conversation with Mr. Spatansky. And obviously, our new activities director isn't here for another week or two.
But he's here.
Okay.
Just got
I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm not sure, but he's here.
But one of the things that I had talked to him about was just looking at, just because I know as a parent, and even though I'm almost out of children at home, that when I did have multiple children at home, it got to be a thing where we were going to like the tennis banquet and then the band and then there were so many activities that it kind of almost burnt us out a little bit. While I appreciate those things and you want to show appreciation to the coaches and the students that are graduating, but I'm hoping that maybe they'll consider some ways that maybe we can consolidate some of that a little bit, just for the sake of family time schedules and maybe for expenses. So it'll be interesting to see if they are able to come up with a plan, but I think it would be something that would be really helpful to a lot of people moving forward. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a good insight of some ways that we could, not just for time, but for expenses involved, because I'm sure that is a lot, you know, multiple kids. And I just think in light of all the budget conversations that we're having, I don't necessarily know what the answer is. I just kind of want to keep this particular topic on the forefront of our minds, because I know, like, just on the May statements, it was over $10,000 at local restaurants and coffee shops, which when you have that data in front of you, that is, you know, if we make some changes there, that's actually a pretty significant amount of money. I think the month before was over $6,000. And so those are not travel related expenses. Those are here. And I am an avid supporter of, I like supporting local restaurants, and I probably DoorDash a little more than I should on my personal dime, but I just think when we're talking about taxpayer dollars and budgets, and there's probably some things that if we made some subtle changes would have lasting big impacts, and anything that we can, you know, trim the fat from there, then those are things that those don't have a direct impact on student learning, where other things that could get cut would.
And I think just another piece with that too, and this was something that came up in my conversation with Terry, is that we do have limited resources. And so when we have so many of our schools trying to utilize those resources, I know, for example, with the high school musical, that we try to do a lot where we get donated meals and stuff, so that there isn't that expense. But then when you have Jefferson Elementary and Washington and the high school and the middle school and the college, and, you know, everybody trying to get these businesses to donate, then as much as I do agree that we need to keep an eye on those expenses, it is nice when we can actually pay them for their services instead of just expect to get those things as a donation. And I think it shows the business support, so that they're more likely to support the school in return.
Are some of those expenses getting then transferred out of the activity funds for those? Like if a basketball team is a fundraiser, I know they've got their, you know, they've got their funds in there. Are some of those expenses being offset by those things?
Right. So a lot of times when I was mentioning about a hospitality room, that's coming out of, we'll say, a track account, or a basketball account, or a speech account. So they're coming out of activities, and that's the bad part about the P card is you don't see the account code. I do, and where it's coming out of, but sometimes those are the dynamics that play into looking at it is sometimes you don't know what's truly happening on the backside of it.
So I'm completely confused. I thought that what we were looking at is like employees and stuff.
We are.
Okay, so
We just
what?
morphed into a little bit of the P card.
Oh, okay, because I'm like,
Yeah.
what does that have to do with the
Yeah.
hospitality?
Yeah, no.
And I've spent way too
worked
much
that.
money on spaghetti feeds than any of this has ever reimbursed me for, so just pointing that one up too.
No, Angela, it was about employee reimbursements, but a lot of times you as a board member in claims audit will see a lot of reimbursements coming out of the P card
Yeah.
transaction, so then that sort of transitioned into just having a general discussion about what is being paid out of those people.
But this is just.
This is just how we guide our employees in the district.
All right, any other questions? All right, so we will go on to the revised policies, and Dr. Rhodes is going to walk us through some of those changes. We appreciate his looking at all of our policies and the requirements with new legislation and the changes, working with the attorneys and whatever else we needed to do. So I'll turn the time over to him.
So if you remember back to the June regular board meeting, we did have you approve our 4 new policies that came out of the 108th legislature. And then we ended up tabling this item from the June regular board meeting. We brought it to the beginning of the whole for discussion. So I'm not going to have Sheila open up each one of these documents. They were on they continue to be live on last month's agenda or on the June meeting, and they're live tonight as well. So I'm just going to hit a couple of the highlights of the changes of these two different requirements with all these policies. Either came from the federal government. 2 policies were affected by Title IX. And the rest of the policies came out of the legislative session. And so all these are required by either state statute or federal at this point. So when we look at 2006, which is our complaint procedure, this policy is being revised due to Title IX. So the 2020 Title IX requirement, you were able to lump together Title IX complaints, grievances, and the appeal process with the OCR complaints, grievances, and appeal process. So they were standard across. The 2024 Title IX requirements, the Title IX, while it still has a standard appeal process, it is different from the Office of Civil Rights. So a lot of that red lining that you'll see within policy 2006 deals with those changes with Title IX. You also see a little bit of change in just some language in terms of complainants and those different types of things. So they kind of look at different groups of people with a different name. And the other component with this policy is every one of those processes start at the lowest level of the chain of command, and the policy makes that really, really clear. And then the last change or revision with this policy is what appeals rest with the Board of Education. And so that is spelled out in here very specifically as well. I know there's a lot of changes with this, and again, you're talking about federal law, but those are main revisions with 2006. 2008 is our meetings policy. And the changes within the meeting policy, and we will have to bring this back to you in January because we will have a change to this policy in January as well. But the addition to this policy is if our paper of local circulation, which we have identified as North Platte Telegraph, the North Platte Bulletin, and potentially the Omaha World Herald, since that is a daily paper, to put notices in. If they fail to get our notice in, then it allows us as a school district to post that notice on our website and in conspicuous places around the school district and the community. And we've still fulfilled the Open Meetings Act in terms of our noticing of the meeting. Now, after January 1, or I should say beginning January 1 of 2025, that's when this repository statewide website goes into effect. And we've got to make sure that all of our notices not only are going out to our local newspaper circulation, but it's also got to be posted on this statewide website. And so the same will occur if our papers fail to get that notice in, then we can go ahead and we can put it on our website and give it out to different areas in terms of notice as well. So does anybody have any questions on that one? Again, it's one of those policies where I think senators got a little ahead of themselves, and the requirement for the first part of this revision is July 19th. And then, of course, the state isn't ready to roll out the websites unless we have the January 25.
So are we putting our notification stuff in the Omaha World Herald right now?
That gives us, let's just say, since we don't have a daily paper, and we'd have to call a special meeting for whatever reason, and we don't have enough days to get it to either the Telegraph or Bulletin to be in print media, then we could utilize the Omaha.
I guess I'm just wondering, because it was kind of a big ordeal to get the bulletin added, because it was just the North Platte Telegraph for a while.
Right.
And it was a huge money issue that was brought up. So why are we adding a newspaper that I don't think has a huge?
Because we don't have a daily paper. And there could be certain things that would arise us to need to have a special meeting. And it could be timely in nature that we would have to have that. And we would have probably the 48 hours to get that to the Omaha. It's just to say that
We have no intention of publishing our regular.
oh, no, we're not going to publish notices in there unless the other two papers from a time standpoint, we can't get it in and meet the statutory requirements of the.
It's only a backup.
It's strictly a backup.
In case for a emergency meeting, you know, which could be a variety of different reasons that we have to meet within 48 hours. Then it could be into our, would be covered, right?
And the Telegraph came not daily, just in the last 6 months.
Hey, one question, can you back up to the last one, 2006, real quick, Dr. Rhodes, if we're done with that one? I had a question just on, so, and there's so much new in here that it's hardly a revised policy, it's basically just all new. Under item number 5, I had done a little bit of research because that's very specific about what the board can and cannot do. And so I was trying to determine if that comes from legislature or if that is coming from just KSB's recommendation, because it seems to conflict a little bit with what state statute says about a board member's role. And so I wasn't sure where that was
I
stemming.
don't have that answer, but I can get it.
Okay.
Before the July.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. The state statute, just so that you know, the one I was looking at, and I'm looking at a screenshot here. So excuse me, I'm not texting over the phone, but it's state statute 79-526. And what it says is that the board shall make rules and regulations as it deems necessary for the government and health of the pupils and devise any means as may seem best to secure the regular attendance and progress of children at school. And so I just would question, I want to make sure that we're not limiting what our role as board members would be. Like, I can't think of a scenario at the moment, but I don't want to inhibit what our role should be or in our own policy.
So I don't want to misspeak either, but there is some language in the rationale for the changes in terms of hearing appeals based on their discrimination.
Okay.
That does not rest with the board.
Okay.
Yeah, but I will find out that specifically, so
Okay.
I'm not speaking out of turn.
Yeah, I was assuming it came from somewhere, but I wasn't sure if it was either too specific or maybe not specific enough that is what it's stemming from. it just seemed to be a little bit contradictory, so I was curious about that.
Now, the language in and again, the rationale, schools do not involve a full-blown discrimination investigation. Unless they involve allegations against a superintendent. So I'm assuming that's part of OCR and civil rights.
Gotcha.
But I'll find out.
Okay.
Find
Yeah.
out for sure. Good question. Okay, so policy 2009 is participation at board meetings. LB 43 within that law has now changed that public comment has to be on the agenda for every public entity's board meeting. So once this is passed in July, and by the way, this is a July 19th, 2024 requirement as well. Your committee of the holes, like tonight, would have a public comment on there. So at any time we have a public meeting, we have public comment. So that's the changes with 2009. Both 3003.1 and 3004.1 come from the federal government and their revisions on the uniform grant guidance that was approved in April of 2024. 3003.1 has a minor change in terms of simplified acquisitions have been put in place of small purchases. That's the only changes with that. So again, that was kind of the federal government. 30041 actually changes that language throughout that policy, and that is fiscal management for purchasing and procurement using federal funds. So obviously the unified grant guidance, and that's where that comes from. And also you'll notice in a lot of cases, you'll see a 5 that has been struck through and a 10 placed in front of it. It changed the threshold from 5,000 to 10,000 on the disposition of equipment and supplies. So those were the major changes with both 3003.1 and 3004.1. 3011 is transportation. Again, this was, we actually have 2 policies on transportation. One was regular transportation and the other one was option transportation. So this requirement is actually leaving 3011 blank, and it's going to move that policy into 5005. So you're going to have one policy, and we'll get to it a little bit later on, that will include district transportation, and then it's got the option transportation language in it as well. If you look at option, our option transportation policy now, it's just a short paragraph. So those 2 have been combined. So again, 3011 will be a blank policy or a placeholder moving forward. Let's see here, 3032 is it was fees and copies for school district records. Kind of some minimal changes with that overall. First of all, in the title, they took out the copying as part of the title. And they really delineated the difference between somebody that's in state and out of state and their request for records. So in terms of your resident in-state request, it moved the 4 free hours in terms of getting this information ready and getting that back to them to 8 hours. So now resident Nebraskans get 8 free hours, whatever that may be, if it's secretarial to make copies or to look through files to find whatever information they're looking for. That would be at the district expense up to those 8 hours. And then of course we can charge after that 8 hours. Non-residents used to be 4 free hours, and they actually reduced that to 0. So now out of state, any out of state requests we get, we can charge them right from the beginning. So when we get open records requests, and we get those on occasion, one of the things that Mr. Simpson does is he does an estimate of what those costs are going to be. And then we get those costs back to the individual or group that is requesting that, and then they make a decision on whether or not they want to pursue those records moving forward. And one of the things that we take into account is the amount of free hours that are offered through that. So those were the changes with 3032. 3033 is the lending of textbooks to private schools. That have been the responsibility of the public school. The new law shifts that to NDE, so it's the Nebraska Department of Education's responsibility to provide textbooks to the privates. So 3033 will now be a blank placeholder moving forward. 3053 is non-discrimination, and this takes into account the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act that was passed a few years ago, which requires covered employers, including school districts, to provide reasonable accommodations to qualified employees or applicants, no limitations related to, affected by, or arising out of pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions. So that's been added into that non-discrimination policy. 3057 is the Title IX policy, and that, again, federally mandated. It actually goes live on August 1st, 2024. Probably the two biggest changes that we see as a school is it's directly related to sex-based harassment or discrimination compared to the previous 2020 regulations. And then it has reduced the amount of folks in district that have to go through the Title IX process in terms of investigating, making final determinations. It used to be a sex-based harassment claim. It would take 3 individuals within the school district to go through that process. Now 1 person can do that with the changes in this. And you probably have heard that several states are claiming that they are going to sue the federal government. They're not going to follow Title IX. We have heard that Nebraska is one of them. But for the time being, this is federal law. And so it's not just highly recommended that you pass this policy, it's required by federal law at this time. Our law firm will keep us up to speed in terms of any litigation that might happen, state versus federal, as we move forward with this Title IX discussion as we go through. Okay. 4011 is FMLA, it's employee leave under the Family Medical Leave Act. Towards the end of that policy, we actually use the Department of Labor forms. The old policy referenced a 301C notice on where to go and get forms for FMLA. So they crossed through that or struck through that. So we don't have that anymore. And then the other requirement with FMLA for employers is you have a 12-month window. And so the change in this policy is that 12-month moving forward will be a rolling 12 months. What they were finding with some people in terms of utilization of FML leave, they might have used 12 weeks towards the end of the 12-month, and when that calendar hit, they would start to use FMLA leave again. And all of a sudden, even though it was considered a new year, you might have 24 weeks of FMLA leave. And so the rolling 12-month calendar would be you earn the weeks back as you go through. So the rolling would be based on every employee that. And that way you'd have to use up leave, earn it back, and then you'd be able to accumulate it. FMLA leave. If that makes sense to everybody. Okay. Policy 4053 is conflict of interest. The changes within the conflict of interest policy are towards the end. And basically that conflict of interest is for any employee that makes $150,000 or more, how they would go through the process. This is the example I would give you. Let's just say that myself, I would want to I would hire a family member, the son or daughter, to work during the summer. That would be a violation now that this is put in. And so I would have to step back from that. I'd have to get written notice to the board that somebody else was going through the interview process with, you know, my son or daughter, and that somebody else was doing the hire. That would be one example of the conflict of interest as it relates to employees and that salary threshold. 5001, is compulsory attendance and excessive absenteeism. And this is a small language change, but pretty important that it is mental and physical, and not just physical as it relates to attendance and compulsory or excessive absenteeism.
So I have a question on that one. Students that stay home and do they have to have some sort of something to back it up for it to be a mental health approved absence, or can we just say, I needed a mental health day, take the day off?
We require us. We're going through the process now in terms of how we're coding absences and you know, what absences really should count in terms of excessive absenteeism. You know, there are districts that, you know, a way to describe it is they gray out the medical leaves. So that doesn't count towards the excessive absenteeism in terms of the 20 days. And there's some stipulations with that, the timeliness, you get the doctor's note, that it was, you know, pre-planned, those different types of things. But yeah, no, we do the difference between an excused doctor's appointment and unexcused is that doctor's. Yeah. And mental would be the same. There'd have to be some sort of documentation. 5004 is option enrollment. I believe that was a Senator Merman bill, if I remember correctly. What it actually does is allow a student to option 3 times during their K through 12th grade educational experience. 1 time at the elementary level, 1 time at the middle level, and 1 time at the high school level. Now, the way that the old law worked with option enrollment is you could option 1 time, and then you could go back and forth between the option and resident district as many times as you want. But really no questions asked. You could just do it as many times as you wanted. So now you could have somebody option out of the district as an elementary student, and then as a 7th grader want to use the resident school as North Platte option out to another district, and you can do that for a 3rd time at the high school. So, and again, that is required by law as well. 5005, this is the transportation policy we talked a little bit about earlier. This used to be strictly an option transportation policy. Now 5005 is just our transportation policy. So it's got the regular district transportation policy in it, and embedded in that then is the option enrollment or option transportation. 5008 is pregnant or parenting students. A little bit of this came from Title IX, and then some came from the Pregnant Fairness Act as well. It's the responsibility of us as a school to communicate with any student that is parenting or pregnant and be able to offer any type of accommodations or services that we have in the school system. So. Five zero three five, this is firearms and weapons. This actually changed in a couple different areas. So with the new law, off-duty law enforcement agents can carry.
I think 5035 students.
Which one did I make?
He said 5035, and he said firearm weapons. 5035 discipline on ours.
Yeah, so 535 came from the firearms and weapons, however. So the changes within student discipline policy, it outlines who can still have firearms and weapons in the school, even though it's dealing with student rights. So, but yeah, I apologize. There were the changes to that. And so it's 5049, it's just a blank policy. So 5049. It looks like the whole thing is up. Yes, yes, yeah. It's been moved, it was moved. To the 5035. Yes, that is correct. So that used to be a separate policy under the gun. So now it's all embedded in terms of our student discipline. But it allows off-duty officers to carry on school property. That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so 5052 is school wellness. This was small language change in terms of the competitive food sections. Outlines the definition of what competitive foods are, when they can be sold, and some of the exemptions and limitations with those items as well.
Now I notice they have a reference to the South Dakota Department of Education under applicability. I think they just did get that changed. Page 4, applicability. Otherwise allowed by South Dakota Department of Education. I guess in KSB. They did their self.
Yes, yes. So I think these policies, as you know, they do have a law office inside.
Attorneys never copy and paste things.
Talking about.
Never happens.
Yes, I'll make a note of that. 6031 is emergency exclusion. So emergency exclusion, it used to be that you didn't have to be quite as formal when you were emergency excluding a student. So now the new law under emergency exclusion requires the same statutory timeline requirements as suspensions and expulsions in terms of notification to parents, the amount of time if they request a hearing, the hearing officer, and those different types of requirements. So, you know, a lot of times emergency exclusions are used in safety issues.
Yeah.
If we feel like there may be a student that is a safe at risk to themselves or others or whatever the case may be, might not fall underneath student discipline necessarily. But it is in state statute that schools can emergency exclude children. But this just puts the formalities and the processes behind it. So that is 6031. 6036 is reading instruction and intervention services. And we are now going to be required moving forward to provide information relating to dyslexia to the Nebraska Department of Education. And that will have to be on or before July 1st of each year. We have not received anything from the Department of Ed on what that reporting system is going to look like. Of course, that will go into effect at the end of the 24-25 school year. So we'll kind of get that figured out a little bit as well as we move forward. The other piece of that particular policy is there's some language in there in terms of what is required from the Department of Education as it relates to professional development and resources that they are to provide us, and then we provide our teachers in terms of reading instruction and intervention as well.
So is NDE only requiring, to ensure that teachers who teach children from 4 years of age through 3rd grade are aware of the professional learning system? So even though we're gonna have a 3-year-old.
Yes, the requirement for reporting and the requirement for providing professional development is 4-year-olds through 3rd grade. Yes, you are correct. So that's a lot of policy revisions.
And these should all be on our July agenda again for us as an action item.
And I would recommend some really good questions on these. If you have any questions, communicate with me, email with me, and I'll get those. I'd like to get as much information as I can to you prior to that July meeting so that we don't have to necessarily rehash all these policies again. Because there is, some of them are very small, minor changes. And then anything, quite honestly, that is dealing with Title IX, federal government, those different types of regulations and requirements, they are pretty substantial. So if you have any questions or comments, get those to me before July, and we'll have the answers and information ready for you so you can look those things up. Thank you.
One way to reduce unfunded mandates would be to stop passing bills that require us to go to our attorney every year to buy some policies.
It's, yeah, you are true. It is true, very much true. And I would say we've had more revisions the last 3 years than we've ever had before. Usually you'll have a handful, but not to the tune of 20, 22. That's a lot of policy revision.
All right, so we will move on now to the discussion on board policy 4041, staff dress and appearance. And this is something that we addressed a little bit at our meeting earlier this month. Before I turn some time over to Mr. Mills, I just wanted to share with you a few things. I went on my deep dive and did a little bit of research on my own. And it's kind of interesting, the things that I found. One of the things that I found is that in a lot of circles, jeans are considered dress casual or business casual. And so it just kind of depends on the industry and maybe, so that was something that was really interesting. The other thing that I thought was really interesting is I found articles from University of Michigan, Kansas State University, even MIT. I have something from UCLA. And so there are, just to kind of see the kinds of things that they are talking to their students that are graduating and the way that they should consider dress codes as they're getting ready for their professional lives. And so one of the things that I also found, and Mr. Mills and I did a little bit of collaborating on this afternoon, was another dress code that we might consider is called business smart, or in some circles it's called smart casual. And so the packets that you have been given have some information about that type of dress. It is similar, I think, in a lot of ways to the business comfortable. It's just a little bit different way of looking at it and maybe, talking about it. It doesn't mean that you are casual in your appearance at all. It means that you're wearing nicely tailored clothing, that you're, still piecing together maybe pieces that you have in your wardrobe, like your jeans with this, like with a nice sweater or a button up or something like that. So it is a little bit more maybe relaxed than some of there's a whole kind of progression of, formal business clothing, business casual, business smart is found in there, and then your casual clothing. And so it's still allowing for people to have a little bit of personality in their dress, but still looking very professional. And I think that's one of the things that as I've been thinking back over our conversations, that I think that we all have a desire to make sure that our teachers are looking professional, that they're feeling professional, that they're being respected as professionals. One of the things that I would also mention with the business smart or the smart casual is I think that it allows for opportunities for maybe teachers just to know that maybe in the classroom, maybe they'd be able to wear their jeans on a certain day, but if they're meeting with parents for the parent-teacher conference, or there's other meetings that they're going to, that those, then they would need to maybe dress up a little bit more instead of in the smart casual. I think it also allows for, I was thinking about our VOTEC teachers, for example. Some of the things that they do don't necessarily fit within the bounds of what most people would consider business casual. So it would allow for them to have a little bit more flexibility in the things that they wear, as far as like our automotive teacher, the woods teacher, we have a welding teacher, and some of the others that are at the high school. And I think I just want to stress again that we're not talking about like leggings, and we're not talking about shorts. We're not talking about, I appreciate in some of the documents that I found that there's even guidance on skirt length. We're talking about nice tennis shoes. Mr. Mills, I'm gonna point out your footwear tonight, that those are something that I think would fit in very well with the dress code. I have something similar on, that it's a dressier shoe with a tennis shoe bottom. So it's still something that's comfortable, and the teachers can get a lot of active wear out of their clothing. One of the things that was brought up in this article that I found on Edutopia is that there are one of the principals in Missouri, she says that she worries that dress codes for educators are an extension of other forms of professional micromanagement and control. Ones that stifle identity and perpetuate the idea that there is a dominant culture to which we should all adhere. She says teachers are professionals. They should be given autonomy and trust unless they prove otherwise. And I think this is included in the piece that Mr. Mills put together, and then it's a conversation and not a reprimand. We're in this together. And I think the other thing that really came through to me is, as we've been talking about teachers and working through the pandemic and post-pandemic issues and everything, and not only has the culture just across the world in all industries changed as far as dress and appearance, but also, we talk about teachers and the things that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, and stressful situations. There was another article that I read, and it was talking about a teacher who had 5 students with high, I can't remember exactly the term, but it was like behaviors that they put out themselves. I can't remember the exact terminology, but she said, so it's like having 5 kids on an airplane, and they're all kind of going crazy at once, and and, you know, exhibiting some of these behaviors where, you know, and she's having to deal with all of those things in the classroom. And so, you know, I feel like the things that we can do, this is a small thing that we could do, that might help our teachers, just even with mental health, but it's not like you have to get up and then really put together this outfit. That it just gives a little bit more, it's one less thing that you have to sit there and stress about is, I mean, you're still thinking about what you look like when you go to work, but it's not as stressful, and maybe you have, you know, your own child who has a soccer game right after school or something, and so it just makes it a little bit easier to be able to go straight from your classroom to the soccer game without having to worry about how you're gonna go home and change and do this, that, and the other, you know, before you attend that student's or your own child's activity. So, one final thing that I will just talk about is this article talks about, that millennials have now surpassed the baby boomers in numbers, and the trend of employers is moving away from more formal attire. And they give the example of Mark Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs and how they dress with their jeans and suit coats and tennis shoes, and you know, and so we're seeing it in all industries. And I think we also have an opportunity for students. We talked about, or for teachers, we talked about them being able to wear school spirit attire. And one of the things that I had considered with that is maybe they could even wear, like, they went to Shadron, or they went to UMK, or they went to UNL, and so maybe, you know, they would be able to wear articles of clothing from their school where they attended, and still, you know, look nice and professional, but it would be able to maybe promote their alma mater, open up avenues for conversation with students where they can talk about, the next step with education, and just give some kids some things to consider. So I just really feel like this is an instance also with the administration. I feel like they have brought this to us, and to some degree, we need to trust that they have gone through the process of determining that this is something that is really needed in our schools. And so I hope that we can consider our relationship as we work through this. And if there are some that decide, I hope that you will decide to approve something, and even maybe with some of the good revised suggestions that we're presenting tonight. But if you choose not to support it, I think we need to really think about the message that that's sending to our teachers and administration as far as trust. So, Mr. Mills, do you have anything that you'd like to add as far as?
Thank you, Joanne. That's not a lot. And I appreciate Joanne, you went down the rabbit hole with me a little bit. I appreciate that, because I know we don't want the board going down, down the rabbit hole. So thank you. So, just a quick recap of the board meeting. I came to you with a change from business casual to business comfortable. That was our discussion of about 30 minutes. And then we decided to table that and come back here today to have a little bit more discussion. So I just put a little packet together, and really the other option that Joanne mentioned is going with the smart casual or the business casual, smart casual. So it's maybe that word change may be enough to move things along with, which I can understand. I thought about that business comfortable. It's just kind of an odd word. So I appreciate your work on this. So I did put this together for you guys, smart casual, and I'm not going to read it to you. You can look through it, have a discussion of smart casual or business comfortable. The biggest piece is, I guess we want to incorporate the jeans into that, and that does not fit into the business casual.
And the other piece of that, Dr. Rhodes let me know that NPPA did go ahead and get their survey together, and they have some information that I think you're planning to put out in your weekly update tomorrow.
We we have a presentation.
Yes, and I have a summary of it as well, though.
So we'll get that information in the weekly update to you, so you can have a little bit more information to look at prior to the July meeting.
I do like the better wording than comfortable. I think it's a better wording. I think it's comfortable to me. Gives you a connotation. It's very wide open. This, I think, narrows it somewhat. So I do appreciate that. I think it's a better word term to use than business. I agree.
I've actually had a lot of people reach out to me about this too, probably because I'm so loud in meetings. I'm woo. Anyways, one thing that was brought to my attention is, have we talked to the foundation? Because they do, and what fundraiser do they have that would help counteract it? So I think that that's, I think that's something that we need to consider before going in, because that's kind of a big deal. I know that the majority of teachers, when Terry's presented before, have participated in that, and those reach grants go right back into the classroom. So that's a really big deal.
Yep.
So I think that I would like to see a fundraiser set up before we take that away from them completely.
I can see what she can get together. I know there are a lot of us in the district, we participate in that.
Well, I pay for it every year.
Yeah.
But you don't pay me anything, but I pay money to it, so I'm gonna my check, because I think it's awesome, and it does go directly back into the classroom for the teachers and the students. But also, it is a profession. When we come to these board meetings, we don't wear our shorts and tank tops like we were working out in the yard. We dress up. Well, you always wear a suit, but, and so does Nick, this becomes a firmer, but we all dress up. I did not wear this today. In fact, I got thrown up on today, so you are very welcome that I did not wear that shirt.
There you go.
So, teaching is a profession, and all of our teachers deserve so much respect that I hate it being looked at that if we decide that against the policy change, that we're not trusting the teachers, because that's not it whatsoever. I definitely respect and honor everything that you guys do in education. But I want you to be treated like the professionals that you are, and you deserve so much. I hate that somebody might walk in and disrespect you because of what you're wearing. Hopefully that never happens, but I would hate it if it did. That is well said.
But at the same time, I think they've conveyed that this is something they want. And I think we have to trust them as people in the classroom to say, if these things come up, we'll deal with them. But for us, if we're allowed to wear jeans or whatever it might be, we think that's going to make a big difference in our culture and this kind of things.
Well, I totally understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I want free legal service. So can I have it? I'll come and I'll be quiet in a meeting. If I can, we all want different things,
That's not
but
comparison.
it's totally compared. There's things that everybody wants to make their lives better, to make their day better. I completely understand that, but there's some things that still do not portray professionalism.
What you're saying is that you don't want to give them this opportunity because someone might consider it not professional.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I would hate if somebody does that. I'm not saying it might happen. It will. I know how I react to people. I know how other people react to me. If I walked into a board meeting with flip-flops,
We're not talking about letting them wear flip-flops. I think that's the problem.
it's an appearance. It's an appearance. So we'll just say anything.
Well, and
We don't want to.
so one of the things that I also have considered is options for shopping in North Platte. And I know, that's something that we all hope that will improve, and I do feel like we do have some good options. But I also think that it's difficult for professional people in North Platte to find truly professional clothing. And I also went through last night, I went through several pictures on the school website and on the foundation Facebook page, on the school district page. And I'm not going to tell you that I didn't think that our teachers didn't look professional, but were they dressing to the business casual standard? No, I could find hardly one person. And so that in itself, I feel like we're already outside of policy, and not that we should amend policy just because people can't find the clothes that they need to wear in North Platte. But if it makes it a little bit easier for them to not have to get, have those discussions at work because they're able to pull some things out of their closet and put together an outfit that still looks professional, but maybe is a little bit more comfortable, then, I think there's something to be said for that too. And I do know, that I talked to two of the principals. I sat, with two principals on either side of me at the strategic planning. And so I did take an opportunity just to ask them how they felt about it. And that was in fact one of the comments, is that some of our teachers would probably look better in some of the things that they had in their closets for everyday wear than in some of the things that they wear to school now. So
That was also another thing that was brought up at our meeting, though, was the inconsistency in the buildings. And I don't know that that's gonna change if we change the policy. Because I think that consistency needs to be straight across. We don't just lower the bar to the principal that had the lowest bar.
well, and I think it also is giving our administrators some flexibility to be able to handle the things that, we've got discipline issues, we've got all kinds of things that we're tasking them with as far as keeping track of data for testing and, all of the academic pieces that we have. And so I think not that it necessarily takes it off of their plate, but it's going to help it come down, instead of, okay, well, you guys have to monitor your staff and you need to go check on every single one every day to make sure that they're dressed appropriately, or the Board of Education is going to come after you.
It's still going to be a policy. That's still going to be their job.
I think we need to see what
Todd
puts out that you see from.
Yeah.
To see.
Yeah, I really should look at that.
Yeah, I would be interested to see that, because I mean, I've taught, I have a dozen family members that are teachers. And I will be honest with you, there was not a morning that I woke up and was like, dang, I wish I could wear jeans today. Like it wasn't a thought. There were a lot of things I wish were different in my days, and that is not one of them. And I don't remember ever hearing a colleague, when they were expressing frustrations, having it be about what they were or not allowed to wear. In fact, typically if I ask a teacher, like, what are you struggling with? What's going on? What could be better? What's help about your day? They generally are gonna say, I didn't feel respected. And I want to make sure that we are showing them respect as a board, absolutely. And I really don't appreciate that being against a policy change and in staff dress and appearance is being communicated as I don't respect teachers, because I absolutely do. But I do know for a fact that the way that you dress does dictate the way that people treat you. And we can say all day long that it shouldn't, and that's true, it shouldn't. But there are studies after studies after studies that show, now the studies are not specifically studying children and how they react to how adults dress, but there are studies about in the workplace and how employees react based on how their leadership dresses. And if as adults, we treat our leaders differently based on how casually or how professionally they dress, I am certain that our children, you just respond to authority differently. And there are studies that show that if you're dressed professionally, you are more likely to feel authoritative in your role. You're more likely to be efficient, and you're more likely to be confident. And so I really question that. To me, it's more of an accountability and consistency issue than it is a we need to wear jeans issue. And I understand, wanting to have options for shopping, and I actually think we have quite a few options. I shop pretty much exclusively locally, and I dress professional most days of my life, unless you see me at Walmart, don't judge me there. But I think there are options, and truth be told, like, dress pants cost about a third of the price of jeans nowadays, so I don't know that those are good reasons to change a policy. And I really do, like, I think we need to think about the long-term impact of that. And if we want to be a school of excellence and command educators of excellence who receive respect in their classrooms, then I think that staff dress is definitely part of that.
Well, I think, if you'll just at least consider the smart dress and take a look at the information that Mr. Mills has put together. I thought it was really, something that was doable. And, I think it still allows our staff to look professional. And so, hopefully, one of the things that would be really nice is if we could come to some sort of agreement, you know, between the staff, the board, and the administration. We know where the administration are and the staff. I think that they're all in support of this, and so it's just
not entirely
a matter of.
So I have had administrators in our district reach out to me and express their concerns about this. So I do assume it's probably a majority of them that are in favor of this, but it definitely isn't all of them. There are some that have some real reservations about it.
So Dr. Rhodes gonna send stuff out.
We can, I want to make one statement before we do. I just want to be clear. Speaking for myself, being in a lot of classrooms over the last 2 years, it has been a rare occasion that I have ever seen anybody dressed unprofessional. And I don't think our teachers do dress unprofessionally, even if they're wearing colored denim jeans. And I just don't believe with a policy like this that we are lowering the standard. If anything, we are matching policy to what is happening across the district. Now, you can talk about consistency, and we have a great group of administrators as well. But I can go to one building and I can see every teacher in that building once an hour based on the size of that building. And I could probably tell you at the end of the day exactly what each one of those teachers was wearing. A couple of our big buildings, I will guarantee you, working in one, there might have been a week where I didn't see a teacher. I've never been able to. I mean, they might have violated the policy. I've never known. I think it's a more practical way to implement a professional dress code policy. And I firmly believe majority of our people are dressing professional. Are they dressing maybe not completely business casual? Yeah, maybe. Should serve. I mean, that's the reason that we have discussions with NPPA on professional dress and why we brought it to you. But I just want to be clear with the board that me, myself, being in a lot of classrooms, our people are not dressing unprofessional. They're not unprofessional. We have a lot of great teachers and staff across this. So I think that's a point we need to have.
I agree with you. When I've gone into classrooms and stuff, I don't look at the teacher and say, oh, gosh, what are you wearing? Like, I've never looked at them like they're dressing unprofessional.
And if we have that situation, our administrators would take that. Yeah. So yes, Matt, I'll get everything in weekly update and then you can.
I think, yes, I think we need to look at that, at the results of that survey. First of all, secondly, you know, if the word change, term would change, you know, and you know how I haven't said much tonight because I said a lot when we talked about it at the board meeting. You know, I'm in favor of it. Because, and I've had a couple people talk to me who are teachers who are not in favor of it. But they explain their reasoning. But they are not in favor of it, but I'm pretty certain the majority of them are. So I think, we need to trust them. One of the things, I know you were a teacher, Emily, and I was too. One of the things that I always liked is when you got trust from administrators, which I felt probably in my career, 95% of the time it was there. So I think to let them handle it and so forth, whatever policy you have, as long as let them take care of it. And true, at the high school, when Dr. Rhodes was there as the principal, there were probably a couple of weeks that go by and I wouldn't see you, or you wouldn't see me. And when you were at Adams, I assume you had the same thing. But but if you're at the lake, you'd see everybody, 20 times a day. So, I said more at the other, at the board meeting, but I do like the term change.
Well, thank you. Thank you for considering this word change, and we'll see what thank you.
All right. Yeah. Okay, so now we need to, the board goals. We had done the board self-assessment and our Marcia, she put together a report.
Can I say something quick?
Mhm.
Is there any potential to table this? We've been here.
All I want to do is just just ask if there's any questions, because this is something that we're gonna have to formally adopt.
Okay.
And so I don't
I just
necessarily.
think, I think it's an important thing for us, is
Yeah.
that we've been here for a long time,
Yeah.
so if we want to have a
Yeah.
quality discussion, I think we can do that better.
So I just wanted to just kind of, I'm not even gonna review the document, it's been sent out. Hopefully you will, if you haven't, so that you will take time to adopt or to, review it. So that, we can consider it for adoption at our July meeting. It's something that, we've had kind of out there for a while, and so it's just, we need to be moving forward.
Do we, just a quick question, so we're prepared for our meeting, when we adopt it, do we need to have in place, like I know there's notes about timeline, action data, evidence of progress. Do we need to have those things identified at the time of adoption, or do we adopt as is?
I will clarify that with Marcia. I'm not sure I have that same question, so I will talk to her and I'll have that answer for you.
I found it interesting, the first goal is like 3 times longer than the other 2 to get combined.
So, yeah, and I think this is going to be a continued.
But it makes sense why it's there.
Too,
It does.
yeah. So, even once we adopt the goals, there's going to be several steps.
Yeah.
To go through.
So at the board meeting, then will we have time to discuss it and everything before it's adopted? Because I feel like we have to do that with every policy before we can actually vote on it, but yet we're tabling it again.
No, we're not tabling it. This is just, we'll just have a more full discussion, hopefully, at the July board meeting. And then as soon as I get an answer from Marcia, I'll get it to Dr. Rhodes and he can get it sent out to the board as far as, some of our processes, in getting that, so.
It would be a discussion.
Yes, so, yeah. All right, okay, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Roll call.
Matthew Peterson.
Aye.
Emily Henry.
Aye.
Carolyn Green.
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye.
Sid Baldwin.
Aye.